Learn how a simple truth can illuminate your path and end the evil within your world. The light of truth that shatters darkness. Imagine standing at a crossroads, with one path shrouded in shadows and the other glowing with a faint, warm light. You feel drawn to the light, though you don't know why. Deep down, something tells you that this glow holds the answer to every question that has plagued your heart. What if I told you that this light isn't just a metaphor but a reality waiting to be uncovered? A simple truth that, once embraced, can illuminate your path and banish the evil you see both around and within. Are you ready to take that step toward the light? I want you to pause for a moment and think about the battles you fight every day. Maybe it's a relentless sense of guilt, the weight of unforgiven mistakes, or the fear of not being enough. Or perhaps you're overwhelmed by the world's brokenness, wars, hatred, injustice, and wonder if anything can truly make a difference. These struggles aren't new, they've been humanity's constant companions since time immemorial. But here's the profound secret: the answer lies in a truth so simple, so pure, that it often goes unnoticed. Let's start with a story. Picture a young man standing before an angry crowd. Their faces burn with hatred as they hurl stones at a defenseless woman accused of sin. She cowers, expecting death, when suddenly a man steps forward. His calm voice cuts through the chaos. "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone." Silence falls. One by one, the accusers drop their stones and walk away. This man, Jesus, kneels beside the woman and says, "Go and sin no more." What just happened here? Was it a miracle? Or was it the power of truth, an unflinching mirror held up to humanity's hypocrisy? Christ didn't condemn the woman, but neither did he justify her actions. Instead, he illuminated the truth: we all fall short, and judgment is not ours to wield. This is the first simple truth: acknowledge your own imperfections before condemning others. Now, let's make it personal. Think of a time when you held anger or resentment towards someone. Maybe they hurt you deeply. Did that anger bring you peace? Or did it fester like a wound, infecting every part of your life? Christ's teaching here isn't just moral, it's practical. Forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook, it's about freeing yourself from the prison of bitterness. When you forgive, you're not condoning the wrong, you're choosing not to let it control you. Isn't that a kind of freedom we all long for? Here's a question to challenge you: what would it take for you to forgive the person who hurt you the most? I know it's not easy. Forgiveness feels impossible when the pain is raw. But consider this: the longer you hold on to that pain, the more it shapes you. Do you want your life to be defined by the wounds others have inflicted, or by the strength of your healing? Let's move deeper into the light. Another scene from Christ's life reveals a profound truth. He's on a mountaintop, delivering what we now call the Sermon on the Mount. He speaks of blessings, not for the powerful or the wealthy, but for the poor in spirit, the meek, and the merciful. He calls them blessed because they understand something the world often misses: true strength lies in humility. The world tells us to seek dominance, to crush our enemies, to put ourselves first. But Christ flips this narrative. He shows us that power rooted in love and humility is unshakable. Think about it. How often do we chase after success, recognition, or control, only to find ourselves emptier than before? Humility isn't about thinking less of yourself, it's about thinking of yourself less. It's about recognizing that we're part of something greater than our individual ambitions. Have you ever wondered what might happen if you stopped striving to prove your worth and started living as though you already have it? Here's a second question for you: What would change in your life if you stopped competing with others and started serving them instead? It's a radical shift, isn't it? Yet, this simple truth has the power to transform not just individual lives but entire communities. When we approach life with humility, we build bridges instead of walls. We see others not as rivals, but as fellow travelers on the same journey. As we reflect on these truths, let's confront an uncomfortable reality. There's a part of us, call it pride, ego, or even evil, that resists the light. It whispers lies like, "You don't need to change," or "You're too far gone." But here's the good news: no one is beyond redemption. The same Christ who forgave the woman caught in sin also forgave those who nailed him to the cross. In his final moments, he prayed, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." If he can forgive that, what excuse do we have? This brings us to a crucial turning point. The evil we see in the world often mirrors the battles within our own hearts. We fight greed, but are we generous? We decry injustice, but are we fair? We long for peace, but do we sow discord? Christ's teachings aren't just about changing the world, they're about transforming ourselves. Because when the heart changes, so does the world. Let me ask you, what darkness within yourself are you willing to confront to let the light in? It's a terrifying question because it forces us to face our own shortcomings. But here's the hope: when you bring darkness into the light, it loses its power. The truth doesn't just illuminate your path, it heals. Before we conclude this part, let me leave you with this: the simple truth that Christ offers isn't just a lesson, it's a choice. You can choose to walk in the light, to forgive, to love, to serve, and to confront the evil within. Or you can remain in the shadows, clinging to pride, anger, and fear. The choice is yours. But remember, every great transformation begins with a single step toward the light. The transformative power of love and sacrifice. Imagine a world where love isn't just a fleeting emotion, but a powerful force that reshapes lives and communities. Love, in its truest form, is the most radical and transformative truth ever revealed. Yet, this kind of love is often misunderstood. It's not just about kindness or affection, it's a willingness to sacrifice. To give without expecting anything in return. And to see the divine spark in every soul, even those who hurt us. What if this simple truth could end the evil you see in the world, and within yourself? Let's journey back to one of the most profound moments in human history: Christ on the cross. Betrayed, abandoned, and humiliated, he endured unimaginable suffering. And yet, in his pain, he offered forgiveness. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Pause for a moment and consider that. Could you forgive someone who betrayed you at your lowest point? Could you love someone who hated you? Christ's love wasn't passive, it was active, relentless, and sacrificial. It wasn't about fairness or reciprocity, it was about giving, even to the undeserving. This is the second simple truth: love is a choice, not a feeling. Let's make this personal. Think about the people in your life who are hardest to love. Maybe it's someone who's hurt you deeply or someone whose beliefs and values clash with yours. Loving them doesn't mean agreeing with them or excusing their actions. It means choosing to see their humanity, their potential for good, even when it's hidden beneath layers of pain or anger. Can you imagine the ripple effect if you extended that kind of love? Starting with just one person? Here's a deep question for you: what would happen if you loved without conditions or expectations? The idea feels almost reckless, doesn't it? But this kind of love is what heals relationships, mends communities, and even transforms enemies into friends. It's the kind of love that disarms hate, because hate has no answer to it. Now, let's connect this to sacrifice. Love and sacrifice are inseparable. Christ showed this when he gave his life for a world that rejected him. Sacrifice isn't about grand gestures, it's about the small, daily choices to put others before yourself. It's the parent working late to provide for their family, the friend who listens without judgment, the stranger who offers a helping hand. Sacrifice says, I will give, even if it costs me, because you are worth it. But let's be honest, sacrifice is hard. It challenges our comfort, our pride, and our sense of fairness. So why do it? Because sacrifice is where love becomes real. It's easy to say, I love you, but true love asks, what are you willing to give? Christ's sacrifice wasn't just an act of love, it was a demonstration of what love requires. And here's the third simple truth, sacrifice isn't loss, it's gain. When you give of yourself, you create something far greater than what you've given up. Let's test this in your life. Think of a time when you sacrificed something, time, energy, or resources, for someone else. Maybe it was inconvenient or even painful. But didn't it also bring a sense of fulfillment? Knowing you made a difference? That's the paradox of love and sacrifice. The more you give, the more you receive. Here's another challenge for you. What are you willing to sacrifice to make love a reality in your life? Maybe it's your pride, your time, or even your grudges. Whatever it is, know this, the cost of love is always worth it. Now, let's bring this to the broader picture. The evil we see in the world, violence, greed, division, thrives on the absence of love and sacrifice. It thrives when we put ourselves first, when we hoard instead of share, when we choose indifference over action. But history is full of examples where love and sacrifice overcame the darkest of evils. Think of figures like Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King Jr., or Gandhi. Their actions weren't grand because they were extraordinary people, they were grand because they chose to love and sacrifice in the face of unimaginable challenges. But let's not romanticize it. Love and sacrifice are messy. They'll break your heart, test your patience, and stretch your limits. So why choose them? Because they're the only path to true freedom. When you love, you're no longer a prisoner of hate. When you sacrifice, you're no longer a slave to selfishness. Love and sacrifice are the keys that unlock the chains of the world's, and your own, darkness. Let me ask you one final question for this part. If you knew that loving and sacrificing could end the evil in your world, would you do it? Even if it cost you everything? It's a terrifying question. But it's also the most important one you'll ever answer. Because in that answer lies the power to change not just your life, but the world around you. Before we move on, let me leave you with this. Love and sacrifice aren't just ideals, they're actions. They're choices you make every day, in every interaction. And the more you choose them, the more you'll see the light grow, not just in your life, but in the lives of everyone you touch. The unstoppable force of hope and faith. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the darkest night you've ever experienced. No stars, no moon, just an endless, suffocating blackness. Now, picture a tiny flicker of light in the distance. At first, it's barely visible. But as you walk toward it, the light grows brighter, stronger, until it fills the entire sky. That light is hope. And in the face of despair, it's the most unstoppable force in the universe. Paired with faith, it can carry you through the storms of life, transform the impossible into reality, and help you overcome the evil that seeks to pull you down. But let's be real, hope isn't always easy to find. When life is relentless, when you're surrounded by pain, failure, or loss, hope feels like a cruel joke. You might even ask, why bother hoping when everything seems so broken? That question is valid. But it's also where hope begins. Hope isn't the absence of fear or doubt, it's the decision to believe in the possibility of light even when all you see is darkness. Think about Christ's disciples on the night of his crucifixion. Their teacher, their friend, the man they believed was the Messiah, had just been executed in the most brutal way imaginable. They were terrified, confused, and broken. For them, all hope seemed lost. And yet, 3 days later, their despair turned to joy as the impossible became reality. Christ rose from the dead. That resurrection wasn't just a moment in history, it was the ultimate symbol of hope. It was a reminder that even in the face of death, life can triumph. Now, let's bring this closer to your life. What's the darkest night you faced? Maybe it was a personal loss, a dream that fell apart, or a time when you felt utterly alone. And yet, here you are. Somehow, you made it through. Maybe it was a small glimmer of hope that kept you going, a kind word from a friend, a moment of clarity, or a quiet faith that things would get better. That's the power of hope. It doesn't always shout, sometimes it whispers. But even the faintest whisper can guide you through the storm. Here's a question for you. What is the one thing you're hoping for right now? Take a moment to think about it. It could be something big, like healing a broken relationship, or something small, like finding peace in a single moment. Whatever it is, hold on to it. Write it down. Speak it out loud. Make it real. Because hope isn't just a feeling, it's a practice. Now let's talk about faith. If hope is the light, faith is the path that leads you to it. Faith isn't blind, it's a choice to trust in something greater than yourself. Even when you can't see the whole picture. It's like planting a seed in the ground. You water it, tend to it, and trust that it will grow. Even though you can't see what's happening beneath the soil. Faith requires patience, perseverance, and a willingness to let go of control. Christ often spoke about faith in simple, profound ways. If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can move mountains. Think about that. A mustard seed is tiny, almost insignificant. Yet, it holds the potential to grow into something massive and unshakable. That's the kind of faith we're called to have, not perfect, not without doubt, but persistent. So, how do we build faith in a world that often feels faithless? Start small. Trust in one good thing today, a person, a possibility, a promise. Then trust in another tomorrow. Faith grows through action. Through stepping out even when you're unsure of the outcome. It's not about being fearless, it's about moving forward despite your fears. Here's another deep question for you. What would you do today if you knew you couldn't fail? Let that sink in. Faith isn't about guarantees, it's about courage. It's about taking risks because you believe in something bigger than yourself. And when you pair faith with hope, you create a force that's truly unstoppable. Let's not ignore the fact that life will test your hope and faith. There will be days when the darkness feels overwhelming, When your prayers seem unanswered. And when giving up feels easier than pressing on. But remember this, the darkest night always comes before the dawn. Every storm passes. Every wound heals. And every seed of faith you plant will bear fruit in time. The question isn't whether the light will come, the question is whether you'll keep walking toward it. Here's one final challenge. What legacy of hope and faith do you want to leave behind? This isn't just about you, it's about the people you impact. The lives you touch. When you choose hope, you give others permission to hope. When you live with faith, you inspire others to believe. And when you combine the two, you become a beacon of light in a world desperate for it. Before we end, let me leave you with this. The simple truth that can illuminate your path and end the evil in your world is this: love without fear. Forgive without limits. And walk forward with hope and faith. No matter the cost. It's not an easy path. But it's the only one that leads to true freedom, peace, and joy. The world may try to dim your light, but it can never extinguish it as long as you hold on to this truth. Now, it's your turn. Will you take the first step toward the light? Will you choose love, sacrifice, hope, and faith, even when it's hard? The choice is yours. And remember, one step is all it takes to change everything. Thank you for staying with me on this journey. If this moved you, share it. Let this light spread. Together, we can illuminate the world. One heart at a time.